Good YouTube, Quinn Wade coming to y'all with that instant hot topic analysis on Analysis Playground on YouTube, exclusively on there forever. And we're going to talk about how LaMelo Ball ended up getting traded. I know they had a breakout season last year. They did miss out on their goal of making it to the playoffs. But LaMelo did step up and play real well for them. Probably wasn't the most efficient. The turnovers, the three-point shooting, the defense, and things of that nature ended up holding them back from making a big run and finally trying to get to the playoffs as their leader and as their franchise player when they got him a couple years ago in the draft. But now that that's over, he goes to a team that's significantly better, but in a tough Western Conference. We knew that teams was trying to make moves to upgrade their talent. Teams were trying to make moves to get better. Well, here you have it. The Minnesota Timberwolves have acquired LaMelo Ball from the Charlotte Hornets for Reid, a 2033 unprotected first-round pick, 3 first-round pick swaps in 2028, 2029, and 2030, and 3 second-round picks, 29, 2032, and 2033 as well. The Wolves will also acquire Josh Green. So Josh Green is just a solid role player. He's not going to do much. He's not going to give you much. But he can play at the NBA level. That's just the best way to look at it. The Hornets discussed a ball trade with the Toronto Raptors and the Milwaukee Bucks. Those guys missed out on getting them since the Timberwolves was the offer that they ended up going with. While Charlotte never shot Ball on the market, they listened to offers and moved forward with the Minnesota Timberwolves that allowed them to acquire additional draft capital and reset their core around Brandon Miller and Con Knueppel. Con Knueppel was in the Rookie of the Year conversation basically the entire season. They had a chance to win it, but came up a little short. While Brandon Miller didn't really have too much of a shot because Wemby was really good and was 20-10 out the gate. But Brandon Miller has shown improvement and growth as a player, being a guy that can get to the basket and give you some exciting dunks and some exciting finishes, some good three-ball off the ball shooting, and then the ability to just be a good extra passer if he doesn't have a great shot. You can say the same thing about Con Knueppel, more of a floor spacer and a knockdown shooter than anything already. The Hornets also will attempt to re-sign Kobe White and free agency. People forget that they traded for him last season, and he really had a great playing tournament, really had some good games before the season was over. He's always been a guy that can get his own. He can get a mid-range, he can get a three, he can get to the basket, he can make a free throw. He's a really hyper-aggressive scorer. And he's going to be cheaper to keep than LaMelo Ball. And he is more of a guard that can really carry offense sometimes. The Hornets now control the second most future first-round picks in the NBA. The Bulls will fold this trade into their deal earlier this week, where they sent Julius Randle to the Brooklyn Nets. That allowed them to get a lot more salary since they just dumped him to another team. The Wolves will now feature Anthony Edwards alongside LaMelo Ball and Jaden McDaniels. People thought they would have to give up Jaden McDaniels to get LaMelo Ball, but they just added more picks instead of giving up Jaden McDaniels. He's one of their best defenders and scorers on the roster. People thought that they might even give up Rudy Gobert to make this trade happen, and he's still on the roster as well. And you would think that it would take more than Reid to get this deal completed. If you're a person that loves the Charlotte Hornets, you probably was looking at it, it was Reid and some picks. Well, honestly, that's the reality of this trade as of now for what we know until it get finalized. Edwards and Ball, for a fun fact, were in the same draft in 2020. Well, Edwards ended up becoming the number one pick in that draft. So Anthony Edwards got a really, really tough thing to accomplish in that draft. But Edwards has become a multiple-time All-NBA player, and people forget that LaMelo Ball ended up beating out Anthony Edwards for Rookie of the Year that season, and he actually has become a multiple-time All-Star in the Eastern Conference for the Charlotte Hornets, but hasn't had any playoff success like Anthony Edwards has had. And now they're going to try to team up to have those things checked off, which is make the playoffs, be a tough duo to control, and try not to be dominant by the opponent. Ball has 3 seasons remaining on his 5-year, $203 million contract that he signed with the Hornets in 2023. Ball appeared in 72 games last season with the Hornets and averaged 20 points, 4 rebounds, and 7 assists. Obviously, the Minnesota Timberwolves going to want that. The fact that he can make a three, the fact that he can get to the paint, make layups, floaters, and dunks. He's a good transition player as well, and a guy that can get his own shot whenever he wants to. Ball has had some injuries in his career. It's mainly his third, fourth, and fifth seasons, but was healthy enough to lead Hornets into a good little finish last year. Obviously, they did not achieve all their goals. Everything didn't go their way, and they did fall a little short. But I didn't think that would stop them from keeping LaMelo Ball because he was their best player. You know, he was the guy that made everything work because of his ability to do a lot of things on the basketball court. And the fact that he's so young, you would think that they would try to keep him as much as possible. But people that have told me that he's very immature, he doesn't handle his business the way that he needs to as an NBA star. And like I said before, he's never really on the court. And it's hard to build a winning culture around a guy that has character issues, defensive issues, and has injury issues. And like I said, if you're the Timberwolves, you're not too mad about that because you didn't really give up nothing. You know, you gave up a bunch of picks, and, you know, that could come back to hurt you. But you know for sure what LaMelo Ball can do at the NBA level. You know for sure that he can play at an all-star caliber level. You know, that's something that you don't know when you're going to get out of these picks, mainly the first and the second rounders. You might get a couple guys that can fit well or play well with Anthony Edwards, but these picks are split up. These picks are separate drafts. Like, you're getting an all-star caliber player for sure, especially if he stays healthy, and that's something that you're not for sure you're getting with any of those picks, and they might even be later round picks anyway. So I don't think that the Timberwolves even thought quickly on this one. They just like, we doing this. We have to do this trade now. If that's what they want, we're gonna have to get it done. And it's mainly because Anthony Edwards, you don't want him to get impatient. You know, he has been putting in a lot of work, has slowly became one of the better players over the last couple years. And his work ethic is really well. Some people criticize his work ethic. Some people criticize his drive coming into the NBA. And whatever they said and whatever they felt that way, he has still become one of the best players in the league. And they just ended up getting DeSumo locked up. They still look at it and say we can play LaMelo Ball as a point guard, as a wing, since he can play off the ball as well, and just be a hybrid type of player as a playmaker. You just want commitment from him. You just want him to buy in. Maybe him getting traded wakes him up a little bit and makes him more motivated, makes him more willing to want to prove himself, and maybe he can take another leap by playing with the Timberwolves. We know Chris Finch is a demanding coach, and we know that the Timberwolves got expectations. This is going to rise those expectations because people going to look at it and say, you gave up Reid to get an all-star. You should be better. You should be a whole lot better. You should be doing a whole lot more this season because of this trade. So it's going to be demands. It's going to be a lot of expectations that the Timberwolves are just going to have to live up to eventually with this roster. I mean, last year without LaMelo Ball, they still won 49 games and still got out of the first round. So it is going to be very interesting to see how successful and how good this team really is going to be. Now, they have some interesting players that can play the three. or the four for this team. Obviously, they might just go out there and get another veteran in free agency to fill that void. But, it's not really something that they have to figure out now. Like I said, LaMelo Ball and Anthony Edwards are below 30. They below 28. They below 26. So they have a long time, even though, like I also said, LaMelo Ball has 3 years left on his contract. So everything don't have to work out right away. They just got to figure out if these guys got to play. Can they play together? Can they win together? Can they push each other? And do they fit well as players together? And then as they see that, as they learn that, as they let that unfold, then they can start putting the pieces around these two to possibly really make a big run and be one of the best teams in the West and one of the more successful teams in the Western Conference. But at the end of the day, if you're the Hornets, you did get a lot in return, and you did get off of his contract earlier than you probably wanted to, and it's a reality now. You can't go back and switch this trade up. This is basically is what it's going to be. Only thing that might be different is you might get a little bit more, or a little bit less, depending on how this trade with Randall ends up going. So a lot of people were saying, oh, losing Randall didn't really make too much sense because you got Nas Reid. Now you don't even have Nas Reid. He's going as real as Randall, and now you get a good wing in return. And they have to be happy with what they got and what they had to do to get it. Now they got to see the results of this team on the court. They have made a lot of moves to reconstruct this roster around Anthony Edwards, and they believe in him, and they think that he's going to get them to where they need to be. But at the same time, we still have to see how it plays out and how it goes, and that's going to be the fun part about being a fan. And, I would have never thought that LaMelo Ball and Anthony Edwards would have played on the same team this early, because LaMelo looked like he was going to be a superstar and franchise player early in his career when he was coming over to the NBA, and so did Anthony Edwards. Now, they both became all-stars, so it ended up happening for their respective teams, and now they got to try to find out a way to win together. Other than that, comment, like, subscribe, and share. Hit the notification bell to get the analysis when it first come out. Y'all stay blessed up. Y'all stay good. Peace. I'll see y'all later today or tomorrow with more analysis. Other than that, thank y'all for the love. Thank y'all for the support. Thank y'all for the loyalty. And thank y'all for continuing to enjoy the channel and the content that I make the way I make it. And at the end of the day, y'all are the best fans that I can ask for and that anybody can ask for. And hopefully I can see you guys later with more news or whatever comes up throughout the entire summer. Peace out.